my pleasure to introduce Danilo Bruschi of the University of Milan, who, from his resume, he sounds a little bit like a combination of Mudge and Spafford. He has given expert advice to the Italian Parliament, House of Representatives. They apparently need help in information assurance, and he's given it. He has a PhD in computer science. He's been a fellow at the University of Wisconsin. His research interests include operating systems and network and distributed system security. And today he's going to be talking about a method to prevent your system from contributing to a denial of service attack. So we're starting a little late. Let's go.
Okay, thank you very much, Cinzia. And I thank Cinzia for giving us the opportunity of talk to you about this project that we are doing at the University of Milano since 1 year and a half. And the project is based on an idea we had a couple of years ago about a new method for solving some computer security problem, for reducing, we think, the number of attacks that we are going to see on the internet. So the talk will go, this is a brief outline. I will spend most of the talk on the idea we had, because it's kind of new idea and I like to see feedback. We are going to present this idea as much as possible because we need feedback for understanding its value and for understanding if it can be done. And the rest of the talk will be spent on the implementation of the idea. We are going to realize and we release quite soon, I think in a couple of weeks, a first release of the tool and the idea, which I will present at the beginning. And I like to have as much feedback as possible by you. So that's the idea. For understanding the idea, we have to think a little about what has been computer security since the beginning. Computer security since the beginning has been based on a defensive approach. The main objective of our community has been that of individuating newer and newer tools for protecting our computers, our network from outside. So the motto could be this one. Networks are dangerous places. That's what usually you are going to tell to people who is going to set up an internet site and so on, and you say, hey, look, outside, enemies are outside. You have to protect yourself by what's outside. And all the computer security community started working on this problem and individuating tools, methodologies, and all this stuff for building stronger and stronger protection. So what's happened? People started, not so many people, but someone started to hire a consultant. Then we started to build walls around our computers, around our network. Then we invented the intrusion detection system. And well, before we had antivirus, and we are going to invent different strategies for trying to protect as much as possible the sites, the networks, and everything. But so that I think we should, you all agree that this is what happened since the beginning. So any tool, any methodology which has been built so far by the computer security community was directed to protect the site. So we want to defend our service by what was outside. But things doesn't really go how we think they should go. We improved a lot as a community, the methodology, the tools. We had very stronger tools now, very efficient. But if we look, the number of intrusion is increasing. More and more people is going to be hacked. The number of exploit is increasing. And I think what's the main thing you have to remember of this slide is this one. Attackers discovered the network, which means they realized that the network can be used as a powerful tool for increasing the power of their attack. I'm not sure that the computer security community has fully understand the power of the network, and I will show you how later, a bit later. So, if we look at this scenario, what we see? We see quite a big community of scientists, researchers, industry, who is going to propose better and better tools for protect your site. And we'll see on the other side an increasing number of attacks, an increasing number of machines which are periodically hacked. And so it seems that something doesn't work as it should. So people started, obviously these are quite standard consideration. A lot of people does this consideration, and here you find some answer that we give to this situation. The problem isn't in the tool. The computer security is doing well. The computer security community is doing well. The problem is that people outside is not aware of the problem. So we have to increase awareness about the security problem of standard users. The problem may be a legal problem. We haven't enough and powerful tool for dealing with hacking. So maybe we need to improve laws and all this stuff. Maybe we don't exchange enough information about computer hackers and all this stuff, so we have to stimulate international cooperation. So you can find a different answer to the situation we are in front of now. It was just looking at this situation that we thought that we can do something different from what has done, from what has been done so far. And we start by these 2 points of consideration. The first one is that 99.9% of the times that an attack is performed, the hacker doesn't use his own machine for it. It's well known that hackers need other users' machine for performing the attack. The attack has never done by the hacker using his own machine for a very banal reason, because otherwise you can trace back to him. So the first strategy of any hacker is that compromise some unsecured machine and use it for attack. I think we can say that because we also experienced for 6 years in a computer emergency response team, and I think we have never seen an incident which was performed by an intruder attacking by his own machine. We have always seen involved in a computer incident machine by unaware users about about the security and about the fact that their machine was compromised. So this is the first step. This is an important consideration. So hackers are using us for attack. I mean, not necessarily us, but maybe sometimes. Another important consideration is that even when we protect the system, we put firewalls, intrusion detection system on this, sometimes the system can still be used for attack. So if you think to internet and so to the network from this point of view, it means that the network actually is formed by something like 100 million potential attackers. So if you change a little your perspective, and instead of looking just at your own machine, but if you look at the internet, then maybe you see something different. You don't see just one machine to protect, but you see 100 million hosts which can be used for attacking your machine. And so, at this point, we think this. What would an hacker be able to do if he couldn't use machines of unaware users? What an hacker could do if he cannot get out, compromise a machine, and use that machine for attack? Probably he would be in big trouble, I think. I don't know if you agree on that, but probably I think it's quite reasonable. So, here's the idea. The idea is reduce the number of intrusions by transforming internet hosts in machines which cannot be used for attacking other machines. So, in a certain sense, revert the computer security approach. Don't only care about protecting yourself, but also care about protecting the other machine by yourself. You not only can be a victim, but you can be also an attacker. That's the main problem. That's the reason why I told you that probably computer security still hasn't understood what does it mean to be in a network. To be in a network, it means that we are all connected. That what you do on your computer can have a reflection on the entire community. So being in a network, having a network of computers means that we not only have to care about the security of our site, but we have to care also about the security of all the other sites. And that's the reason why I said that even if well protected, a computer can be subverted and become an attacker. It's not enough to protect a site for being sure that it will not be used for attacking. We have demonstration that of attacks which go through firewall intrusion detection system. So it's not enough to protect a system. You have to take care of installing something which will, in a certain sense, disarm your computer and disable your computer for performing attacks towards our other computers. So our motto is disarm computers. So our proposal is that of building, projecting something which we called a disarmed computer, which is essentially a computer which turns off the host attacking capability. So the idea is that such a tool should understand, realize when a computer is used for attacking, where attacks are leaving from the computer, and stop them. That's the main idea. Okay? So in a certain sense, if you think it's just an inversion of the notion of intrusion detection system. With an intrusion detection system, you take care about the fact that intrusion get into your network, you try to recognize them and to throw away the packets. Here the idea is that attacks are leaving your network, and so you block them and do not permit them to go out. That's the. So the idea was the realization. We think about a little about the realization, and essentially the tool would be a kind of reference monitor. We call it a network reference monitor, which will intercept all the network traffic which is leaving the machine, analyze the network traffic, and throw away packets which contain some data. As this was the original idea, as we will see later in the presentation when I will describe the implementation. It's not just a reference monitor. The reference monitor is a big component of the tool, but there are some other agents around the machine. Obviously, we also need, as I told you, the problem is that this tool has to be difficult to remove. This tool has to be inside the operating system, and for a standard user should be impossible to remove it from the machine, obviously. So for that, we think about the kernelization of the tool. So the tool is part of the kernel, is implemented, and is linked inside the kernel. And so for removing it, you have to reinstall the system. That's the idea. Okay, so this is the main work of the reference monitor. As I told you before, we stay is a daemon which monitors the outbound traffic, and looking at the outbound traffic, it tries to find the signature of that, and then remove that packet. So at this point, obviously, you have a problem. Not a big problem, but you have a problem, which is this one. Because most of the attacks has been characterized for a recognition from the outside. So we are able to recognize, for example, let's say, a denial of service. We have some heuristic for recognize a denial of service coming from outside. We haven't the same experience for characterizing attacks leaving a machine. This because as computer security, we mainly always concentrate on protecting the machine, so we have to understand how the enemy will present to us. We never play the game of understanding how we could attack. So this is a big, not a big problem, it's a first problem to consider. And so the problem is the most I wouldn't say the most important, but the most critical problem is that of understanding the signature of the attacks even if in some cases it's more easy to understand an attack leaving from the machine than an attack coming into the machine. For example, an IP spoofing is very easy to detect at the source, because you just have to compare the source IP address with the IP addresses on your network interfaces, while it's essentially impossible to recognize an IP spoofing, an incoming IP spoofing. Okay, so kernelization, as I told you, is a very important component of the tool, because we want that the system need to be rebooted for removing the tool. That's because if an attacker gets into the machine in some way, at that point he could easily remove the tool and use the machine for attacking. We don't want that. Or at least we want to make it hard to do that. Okay. Now, let's talk for a little about what will happen if such a tool would be adopted worldwide by all the internet users. So for a moment, think about any machine, not any, at most any machine on the internet has such a tool installed. And obviously I'm done talking about the prototype I will go to present later, but an ideal tool as the one I described. So standard user will continue to work to do his job, but the machine could not be used for attacking other machines. And so, for example, distributed denial of service, as we've seen last year, would be very difficult to do. Because at that point, you have to be able to find 100, 200, 300 machines which don't implement such a tool, or compromise them, remove the tool, reinstall the operating system, and then use them for your scope. And I believe that this is quite a big problem. So I think, as Cynthia said, that probably this is the most effective way for solving the denial of service attack. The only reasonable way for solving denial of service attack is to avoid that machine start spamming traffic, get out packets at a very, very high rate. And with such a tool, we have implemented a heuristic which will avoid attacks such as denial of service. IP spoofing would not be able, they will not be able to do IP spoofing, buffer overflows and all this stuff. Buffer overflow is kind of different attack. It's not just a network attack, it's just a host attack. We will see that, we will consider also this kind of attack. So, we are in this scenario where any user has such a tool on his machine. So, very few attacks will happen. Because for doing an attack, you really have to find a very stupid end user which doesn't realize that you are going to reinstall the machine. And usually, when you reinstall the machine, you have to reboot the machine. And for most operating systems, you have to turn off and then turn on the machine for it. So if an end user doesn't realize that someone else is doing that, I believe it's quite difficult. Anyway, we have a solution also for this problem. Again, could also improve performance of intrusion detection system and firewall, which is becoming quite a big problem with the current trend on high-band network. We know that intrusion detection systems are unable so far to deal with 100 megabit networks, and we are thinking about the gigabit networks. So how would this kind of tools work with this high-speed network? Having these tools implemented could help us in this direction because at that point you could build a wide list of users you know who are going to use your tool, this tool. So you know that there are a community which will never attack you because they use this tool. So you can build a wide list and so improve the filtering process by intrusion detection system firewall by saying, if this packet arrives from this destination, that's fine. I know that the guy he's going to implement, he's going to use a disarmed computer, go away. And in that way you can improve a lot the filtering process, at least the speed. There's another problem to consider. Not recently, 1 year ago, we have seen the first intrusion which uses SSL for going through intrusion detection system and firewall. That's because intrusion detection system obviously are unable to understand an encrypted payload on the IP packet, and the same for firewall. And so you can use encryption, encrypted channel for doing attack, and go through intrusion detection system and firewall. So, on the other hand, as a computer security community, we are going to tell people use encrypted channel for communication. Now we can be in trouble because using encrypted channel can be useful for bypassing most of the protection tools we have devised in these last years. One of the solutions to this problem is to capture the attacks either at the source before the packet leaves, so before the attack leaves, or just at the destination because it goes to the application. From our point of view, it's better to stop it at the source just because you save bandwidth. And in such a sense, the tool we are proposing can be very useful because it can be put in the various layer of the IP stack, the TCP IP stack, and before you get the payload encrypted, you can verify what's the payload and then decide if there is an attack or not. We also have to think at what would be the next generation of internet, and we will see a lot of computer games and all this stuff which will use internet, and such computer games or domestic appliance, refrigerator, and all this stuff connected to internet will be just as powerful as a standard personal computer. So they could be used for attack, distributed denial of service using refrigerators. And at least a first solution could be, let's make this tool at least innocuous, so disarm them. So be sure at least when you put these tools on the network that they will not be used for doing attacks. Another aspect to consider is liability issue. We come from a country which is Italy, where computer users are liable for any action the computer they own execute. I mean, if my computer is used by some hacker while I am here and is used now by some hacker, I will be considered liable by the Italian law for what that computer is doing now. And what the law requires is that users adopt some minimal measure, security measure on their personal computer. Obviously, no one take this measure, and because security is difficult. I mean, it's not easy. I have looked at even recently the Windows 2000 security manual. It's a big mess. I mean, understanding what you have to set is you cannot understand. Even I don't know how a user could put a security setting in any personal computer. Security, from this point of view, still is very difficult. And this tool could represent a first solution. I mean, I don't consider you liable if you adopt a tool which will not offend all the other people on the net. Obviously, that's the positive part. We are also aware of some criticism which has been moved to the idea, and which has been pointed out in meetings like this one. We are aware that obviously this is not the solution. This is a complementary solution we should be using. We should be at least consider that, we believe. For being really effective, it will need a geographical deployment, which I don't need if it will be possible at all. Depends on the internet. Obviously, we have the problem of false positive and false negative, because we are going to recognize attacks on the signature, and so we have the same problem as intrusion detection system. Even if experiment that we have done so far doesn't show this problem, but we believe that the problem still is there. There is obviously the problem of updating, which has to be considered, because as we work on signature, on a kind of signature database, such a signature has to be maintained, and the problem is that we want that the module be kernelized. So anytime you change the database, as the project is now, you should do something like a OS patch, an operating system patch, which is kind of not nice procedure. Then there is obviously a marketing impact in adopting such a, this point has been pointed out by Microsoft, and which probably has to be considered. Another point which has been outlined in the budget discussion is the comparison of this tool with personal firewall. As you probably know, we are seeing now in the last year a lot of antivirus stuff which comes now with personal firewall. So you can set up a different rules on your PC for filtering outbound traffic. Again, in our opinion, the problem here is that you can expect that a standard user will be able to set up a personal file. Standard user have a problem in installing an antivirus. You cannot ask them to personalize a personal file. Again, personal firewall is related to the user the user awareness and the user ability. We want something which is completely transparent to the user, which the user never see, and which stop what we believe are the most important and the most diffused attacks. So that's the first point. Do you have any question about this general idea of the project before I go through the implementation and show you how we implemented the first prototype? Okay.
Did you get any further in thinking about the update problem, other than doing kernel patches? Sounds pretty brutal.
Yeah. No, we know it's a problem, but we are delayed it. So we have so far more urgent problem to think about. But if you have any suggestion.
Okay, I'll put it on my list.
I have a related question. It deals with the signature-based approach versus the anomaly-based approach.
Okay.
You know, of course, the signature-based approach is only going to catch known attacks. And if the signature-based method worked, we wouldn't have this problem because all the IDSs would, you know, be perfect. What have you addressed in that area as far as, I guess that's one of the update patch things. It would almost have to be a weekly or monthly update because as new signatures were developed, you know.
Yeah, we also think about the anomaly approach, but you should understand we are just two persons which are working on this project, and it takes us 1 year up. It could be a very reasonable way. We think about that, and it should be a very reasonable way to do that. For this phase, we just worked on the signature approach, but I think it's a very good idea to work on that.
It seems to me the current problem with security over the internet is that people aren't using protocols in the way in which they were designed, right? That's how people are bypassing or causing all the problems. They're changing the way packets are and they're not using them properly. So the way that we combat that right now is by, as a receiver of such information, looking for problems, right? And your proposal is that we put the onus on the sender to look for the problems. That doesn't even change the problem from the receiver's point of view, in that now you're still trusting the sending machines to be doing things correctly, because instead of them explicitly doing things correctly based on nobody trying to cheat the machine, now you're putting something else in the machine to try to make sure that the machine is working properly. And it doesn't seem like ultimately it's going to solve the problem.
Why?
Because you still have the same problem. For example, you spoke of having a whitelist,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. How do you know that a machine that you put on the whitelist is in fact still, first of all, was originally running this hardened interface and is still running it?
Yeah, what if it's spoofed?
Okay, yeah, you're right. As I told you before I show you the consistency, I said assume we have an ideal world where any machine is using that. We are aware of the problem, the fact that whitelist can be spoofed and all this stuff, this is a problem we should address. We want to address. We are aware of the problem, the fact that you are not sure that maybe the machine the traffic of the machine which is going into your machine is exactly that of the machine you assume. So the problem of the IP spoofing. I would say that we are thinking about a way for addressing this problem, but this is really a very initial research, because you should understand this. If we have
a world where we have disarmed machine and armed machine. At that point, we made a further step with respect to security. We have the good and the evils. So now the problem, okay, you just can categorize the set of internet machine. So far you can. But now you have the good machine and the bad machine. So now the problem is how do you recognize that you have a good machine? You are talking with a good machine. So we shift the problem a layer above. Anyway, I believe that as much of the security, also common sense can be useful in this case. And I mean, if I know you, I can assume module IP spoofing that packets which arrive by your machine are good. And so I will put your IP machine, or your IP address in the whitelist. Module IP spoofing.
My other concern would be that unless you make the only way to update this kernel module or whatever via a complete reinstall of the operating system, what's to stop a Trojan, once the standard Trojan horse problem, I run a file and it changes those files so the next time the system boots, the new modules start up.
No,
malicious modules
yeah.
in fact disarm the entire system.
I would say that this is the answer. The ASIC implementation on the network interface. So we are aware of all these kind of problems. So far, we just implemented the module for understanding if the idea can work. To this problem, the only reasonable idea is to have an ASIC implementation of the module on the network interface, which solve any problem. Even if at that point you have to be really smart for the updating problem. Okay.
Do you think this has more application mainly for like a distributed denial of service attack as opposed to something else? Because as Alan was saying up there, signature IDS mechanisms detect known stuff. But we really have a difficulty with denial of service. It seems to me that this technique would be more effective in shutting down a denial of service type attack as opposed to just strictly shutting down the whole spectrum of network problems. That's just my thought.
Yeah, maybe you. I think the only thing which can tell the truth about that is experiments.
Okay.
We should try.
Take some data.
Yeah, we have to take data, see how much does it take to verify most of the attacks and all this stuff. I will show you now the implementation, but we are really still working. We are the prototype is just finishing in these days. So okay. Sorry, just a minute. I have to talk a bit. The square represents. Okay. So the first step, after the idea, we want to see some numbers. So we want to see if we could implement such a module, how does it cost, and even to look at the impact of having such a module running on a machine. So the module has been called the Angel, and has been implemented of Linux. That's just because we had the sources available. So as I told you, we are not looking just at network-based attacks. We also look at host-based attack. So as for host-based attacks, we mean an attack which is performed on a machine for gaining higher level of authorization. The classical buffer overflow and this stuff. And so we have the two modules, a module working on the network and a module working for host attacks. So the network module has been developed as a hook on the NetFilter tool, which is a personal firewall by Linux. So far, the prototype isn't still kernelized. Will be in after the first experiment. This is the hook where we connected the module, which is the hook which manages the packet just before they go on the network interface. So I will show you. With respect to the host-based module, the host-based module essentially is a series of wrappers on system call which are used for performing the attack. So we wrapped the exec, the fork, and the archive syscall. So the idea obviously is that when one of these system calls is called, we intercept the call, we go on the system and verify some parameters. If they are okay, we recall the original exec VA, otherwise we kill the process. So this is an architectural overview where actually the module is. So we have a network component and a system component. So these are the intrusions we have considered so far. We consider intrusion for the different protocols and for the application. On IP packets, we consider data attacks, LAN smart hijacking. Some of them are together. ECMP, the smart attack require ICMP packet, spoofed, all this stuff. On TCP, we consider the SIM flood, a DOS on the Motic server, and LAN. With respect to the SIM flood, we used the standard heuristics. We look at the number of connections which are open and not closed by a server. Obviously, we always work on raw socket. Initially, we look if the connection is a raw socket or not. If it's not a raw socket, it's not a problem. If it's a raw socket, we have a table where we memorize the number of connections which has been sent to a server, and when a threshold is reached, we stop the next packet by that process. On HTTP, these are some of the attacks not all. I have, if you are interested, I have a complete list of all the attacks we deal with the reference on the CD, all this stuff. Host-based, so we stop something like 30 different kinds of buffer overflow. So far, the buffer overflow is considered by looking in this way. When an exec VA is executed, we intercept the exec VA and we look at the argument of the exec VA. We look at the product which is going to execute it at the option, and we go first through the environment variable for that process which has to be executed to see if the environment variable contain the exec VA bin shell code. If not, we do the same research on the options. So we look for the code of the standard code of exec /bin/shell or b shell or whatever. So it's just a syntactical control. And in that way, we stop something like 30 kinds of buffer overflow. So in the check, so if nothing is found of this kind in the exec VA call, then we recall the original exec VA, and the process starts. Otherwise, we kill the process. Then we have some other kind of denial of service host-based, like the fork bombing and the malloc bombing, and that's the reason why we have to wrap the fork supervisor call, the BRK supervisor call, and nothing more. Okay, first result. So the tool works. It's not easy to program. We have some trouble with Linux and NetFilter which is in the first version with the 2.4 kernel. And the first result, on the performance point of view, doesn't seem to show a negative impact of the module on the general traffic rate generated by the machine. So we don't slow down the packet too much. The impact seems to be a slowdown of 7–8%. But these are really the first measure we are. So just take this as a first indication. What we are doing now, we are implementing signature for individuating post scanning. We are still working on the false positive ratio. We are thinking to distribute the module to a sample of 100 students and see what happens when they use it daily. We are going to improve performance measure, and we're working on the tamper resistance of the module. What should be done? The future project, porting to Microsoft platforms, but for that we need the source code of the Microsoft operating system, and we are in touch with Microsoft, and maybe they will come. Then we want to develop a module for working at the data link layer. So far we just intercept TCP and IP and ICMP packets. We just like to work at the data link layer. And obviously this point has to be deepened, because we really haven't understand yet how the SSL IPsec could compromise the possibility on individuating an attack. So we believe that this will be the final architecture of the module, where probably we will need a module. That's because if you're using a SSL, you need to intercept the packet before it gets encrypted, and it is encrypted at the TCP layer. So we probably will need a module there which intercepts the packet before it is encrypted and look at the signature. The same for IPsec. And then we have to work here for solving problems such as sniffing. And but obviously so far we just have, we are still in the first release. We are working on the IP and the syscall. Okay, conclusion. So the tools work. We believe it represents really a barrier against script keys. I mean, it's not easy to try to subvert a system which implements such a module if you have not a very good experience on systems. In this phase, it could be used. It can be thought as a very useful tool for internet security. That's because why intranets? Because intranets are very close network, very close, which usually are centrally managed. So a system manager which centrally administers all the internet machine can verify that the module is always there, is still there the day after, and can verify that no one tried to subvert the machine. And so the problem we mentioned before are not so present in very close environment. If you have an environment which is well managed and well monitored, you can be sure that any user has on his own machine such a module. And so you could solve at least the internal problems. Deployed on the internet, I think it could make the difference, but we don't know if the internet community will adopt it. Okay, we hope so. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Yes, more questions?
When you're looking at higher level protocols like HTTP, at what point are you looking, I see the final diagram, at what point are you looking at those packets now?
Now at the IP level. Before the packet leave, so we look at the destination port.
Okay.
Yeah, so far the module is just implemented. Yeah, the IP layer and the system.
So you're looking at individual packets, not packets over time?
No, we for some kind of attacks, for example, the narrow service, but even for the malloc and so on, we take an history of some connection and all this stuff.
Yes,
We are not stateless.
What I'm thinking is, at the higher level protocols, my attack could actually span a couple of packets, and you won't recognize that unless you see.
Yeah, so you say you fragmented the...
Fragment.
Yeah, we know the problem.
Okay.
But so far it's not that.
In terms of the overhead or the percentage slowdown that you measured, is that a function of the size of your filter set, or the size of your code, or both?
Yeah, it's related to the size of the